for what they've achieved in their personal and professional lives before we get into the panel. So I'm honored to be here. It's a blessing for me to be given the opportunity to be actually be speaking to each one of you about your journey. But what I want to do is on the topic, just set a little bit of context in what's really setting the stage for what's happening right now. And this is for everyone, right? Women today in workplace, as per a report, underscores it's a very sobering reality in terms of, despite these hard-fought gains, women representation in workplace is still not keeping pace. However, there are some myths that are being dispelled, which talks about how women are becoming more and more ambitious. So wherever there is an opportunity of flexibility that's coming into workplace, women are getting ahead. At every stage of a career pipeline, women demonstrate equal commitment and interest in career progression as their male counterparts. And young women in particular exhibit remarkable ambition, with, in this report, 9 out of 10 aspiring to be promoted to the next level and becoming senior leaders. So that's a great fact that's coming through. On the boardroom side, right, there are some challenging facts where, you know, there aren't enough representation that's happening at the boardroom level from women where it should actually be. And I want to set that context from perspective of just the careers, the remarkable careers you all have had, and try and figure out how we could get this into a narrative or a journey that we want, that you've all been on. So I want to just start this by just setting the context on landscape which you started with, right? And over the years, what are the changes that you've seen in workplace dynamics? And really how the industry and the larger ecosystem is evolving, and the visibility that you've had over your career. How do you start? Ma'am, you start, and then maybe Vidisha, and go from there.
Sure. So, you said, ask Nandini.
Nandini needs to start.
Okay.
Maybe we can go one round like this and then kind of pick the order, yeah.
So one
I have no
question,
clue how to
all
be
of us-
fair in the order sector here.
All of us answer the same.
So we can kind of go from there. You start the question and then we can, if someone wants to add, or I can move on.
I want to first pick up what you spoke about ambition. And two things on that. I think we owe a lot to women like us,
Yep.
and to parents who are actually, I would say, imbibing that ambition into their daughters. The fact that we are giving them the freedom to express, we're making them independent. I mean, I have a daughter, and I have seen the kind of freedom we've given her, and I mean, she could just take on anything. And we've always said, just go and fly. And that is why possibly you are seeing today the ambition that is there. But the other point is, we are seeing this in urban areas. What is happening if you go to tier 2, tier 3? And I talk to a lot of young women over there, and I'm not hearing this story. They are still living under the same societal issues that we were living in. So I think it is important for women like us, you know, more power to us and more power for us to be strong and to get our girls to be strong. That is really very important. But talking about what changes I have seen, I mean, the COPCOM function itself is reflective of the fact that, you know, it was hardly there earlier. I've seen how it has evolved. There were a lot of women in that. I'm seeing men coming into it. I'm seeing women are now moving, cross-pollinating. In my own team, there was a girl who I felt was so good that I said, why don't you go into client-facing work? You know, so I think it's up to us as we go and we become leaders. Can we encourage the younger girls in our teams to take on more, you know, to bring about the change? I think we owe it to them. And that is happening as more and more of us are reaching the top.
Seema?
Yeah, Nandini, you said it very well. And just to add what you said, in terms of the way the landscape is changing, I'm seeing it around myself. And contrary to what you said, Nandini, if you see in Bangalore itself, you have so many young people who've come down from smaller cities. And when they come to metros like Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, they actually find a place where they can shape their dreams. They get the freedom, and it is upon us senior leaders where we not only have to give them an opportunity, but we have to also nurture them. We have to play the role of mentorship. And that's what I think at this stage all of us are really engaged in. And I'm particularly proud of giving opportunity to youngsters who joined my team. And, as many of you would know, I almost kind of run an in-house PR firm and a design firm, much like Nandini. So it gives me an opportunity to keep, hiring talent, shaping talent, and then letting them go off to newer places where they find, just to, let them have what they want to do in life. And what was the second question?
Actually, the first question only. So.
Yeah, okay. On the boards, yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. And if you remember, it was about, I think, 2013 when we had that new regulation where it was essential to have one woman member on the board. So we saw initial 10 years, probably things were not moving that well. But now today, I was reading somewhere that it's 1 in 6 women, 1 in 6 companies have women on their board. So the statistics shows that things are really moving forward. And in terms of Biocon itself, I'm extremely proud that we have 1/3, board members as women, which means not just Kiran, but I have 2 more board members and a board of 9 members. So things are changing, and they're changing for the good.
Oh, that's great. Vidisha, you want to add to this?
Yeah, sure. Hello? Yeah. It's on, right? Okay. Yeah, no, I agree that, as people, as leaders, we are the ones who have to set examples. We are the ones who have to really lead the way and mentor, because fortunately or unfortunately, not many of us, when we were growing up, had mentors. And so whatever we have missed, I think it's part of our responsibility, duty to give back. And we know what that absence really feels like. If someone had told us the various things that we learned, on our own by making a lot of mistakes, we would have been a lot richer, better off. And for want of a mentor, there shouldn't be another talent, which should have to transverse ways that we had to. That is one. Abhishek, I'd like to touch upon a little bit on the larger ecosystem.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I'd like to talk a little bit about stepping away a little bit from our immediate workplaces to, look at the picture that the country is today. We have the apex leader, the president of the country is a woman, a tribal woman at that. Unfortunately, the representation of parliamentarian women is only about 15%, but we are, I'd say again, something which is remarkable that has happened this year itself in September is that the Women Reservation Bill has been passed, which guarantees, or mandates rather, 33% participation of women parliamentarians in the state legislative assemblies as well as in the Lok Sabha. With the entire bridging of the digital divide, we are seeing a lot of women entrepreneurship at the ground level in rural and semi-rural, tier 1, tier 2, tier 2, tier 3 towns as well. So Nandini, this is to what you said. The explosion is actually happening in the rural towns as well. And there are many people, the entrepreneurship, I think, is possibly in the blood of Indians. They are entrepreneurs by nature, driven. And so I think there are a lot of women who are coming into the workplace. But yes, in our immediate workplaces, are we still governed by that, by the basic century-old thought process which happens in male-entitled environments? Perhaps yes, not yet rooted out, and we do have a long distance to go forward. But I'm optimistic.
Abhishek, I just want to bring one word in. I mean, you said mentor.
Yeah.
I think what we need is a sponsor.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
And that is the way. I mean, if we sponsor somebody and make sure that we are able to bring the opportunities and then push them forward so that they do.
Absolutely agree.
And just to add to that, sponsors and that too male. We need male allies and male sponsors. That makes a difference.
Praveen, you want to add?
I'd actually like to go back to the basic question, and you talked about what is the change that I'm seeing. Okay, when I stepped out after finishing my studies into the working environment, at most of the places where I applied, I got a reply back saying, sorry, we don't take women. At least that's not possible, anymore. Uh, um, so having come from there, I think our particular industry, the it's been quite nice. I mean, even if you look at the recent Exchange for Media article about the so 30% out of the 10 people named were women. So our industry has been much better than any other, and I think traditionally, that I think here we had women go higher. Men came into the support roles, and so it was skewed in that direction. But even here today, you see, you will see our industry has been particularly open to women, and I think I'm proud of that.
Thank you so much. I want to bring Seema, you into this, the second question on, has D&I or diversity and inclusion just been a word, or has it evolved over years? Are there any visible examples that you've seen how this has evolved for companies, or generally in your career, how that's progressed?
Yeah, DEI has really taken center stage now, as you know. But to your question, is it just a word on the wall, or is it really being practiced? I think it is being taken very seriously, and we are seeing the change happening. The workplaces have become very inclusive today. But what is important is to see whether we are only talking about gender diversity, or are we really talking about diversity in the true sense? Yeah. So in that latter part, yes, there's a lot that needs to be done. But I think most of the organizations currently are just, kind of focusing more on gender diversity, as long as you get that right. And on diversity, just to the point that Praveen had mentioned, our sector actually has diversity on the other side, right? It's just diametrically opposite. And I'll give you my example again. So I remember when I had started off, and I saw around that, it was generally, the perception was that PR is for women, it's not for men. Yeah. And in my 35 years long career, I have kind of taken that up as a challenge, and I made sure that I recruited men in my team, and I trained them up, So Nandini has done that too. In fact, in one of my past organizations, when I was the head of corporate marketing and communication, and I had hired one person. He was a boy, and I had hired him as a web developer. And then I trained him up, brought him up to speed, that when I left that company, he actually took over. And today he's a general manager. So that's the kind of focus on diversity that we need to give in. And yes, changes are happening, workplaces are becoming inclusive. But what is important is to see how do you really get the entire leadership to take ownership of diversity. It can't just be the responsibility of HR, right? Yeah. It's not the HR has to show the slides to the board, so they have to give the numbers. Each and every leader, and in our organization, for example, diversity is a very important part of your KRA. Yeah. Every leader has to commit, and we have our targets. And so right now, for me, I have to hire more women to make sure that I get the gender ratio right in my team. So yeah, DEI is here to stay.
Can I share two stories?
Yeah, but I wanted to bring you in an additional thing on a comment that Seema made, right? One is when you have these gender diversity targets set in today's day and age, do you still need mandations of resumes, 1 in 3, targets being given to CEOs to say, you need to turn your organization that percentage? Is that still required, or where are we at? I mean, if you want to stay, Nandini, give an example for your own organization or any observations that you've seen outside of that, to see where are we at from a corporate world perspective. Do we need mandations? Do we still need gender diversity mandations?
I would think it is important for the simple reason that can everything be looked at from that lens? So that, let's say, right in the entire talent life cycle, whether it is hiring, whether it is development, whether it is training, whatever is there, put the gender lens and see, have you also got profiles? Are you considering that or not? Yes, finally it is merit, but merit has another story to it. I've actually heard, that people, the fact that whether somebody is on meritocracy, whether you are hiring somebody or not taking, that has its own flip side also, and people can take it as a way to not consider you, so that I don't think that should be the limitation. So, but on the gender piece, which I thought is just two things I want to share. I've actually heard a senior person tell me, and that the gender diversity is being talked about so much in the organization, that when this person got a very senior role, the men in the organization actually had the gumption, if I should say that you've got it because you were a diversity.
It's a diversity hire.
Yeah, it's a diversity hire. I mean, that person, and we all know. So my ask was that, what did you do about it? And that is where what we heard in some of the earlier discussions, that the person kept quiet. Yeah. She let it pass. Now that is something that we need to have the confidence to actually get into a discussion and not let it pass. Yeah. And the other bit where you said on the diversity people, and I've actually had diversity team leader talking about the fact that this person was asked that it is your accountability to show the numbers, and this person had to push back and say that, listen, I can set the processes, I can tell you what is to be done, but finally, how can it be my accountability to make diversity happen? Yeah. Till the time it is not the business and the people in the organization and different functions who are looking at what they are doing from the lens of diversity, they have to make it happen. I alone cannot be held accountable for the indicators whether the needle has moved.
Just to add to that, I mean, I've of late gotten into the independent director business, so I've been looking at BRSR reports of leading organizations. And you'll be very surprised that even the top level organizations have less than 5% women. So yeah, I mean, whether you require mandate, I think that till such time as we reach a level where, we are talking, at least 30 to 40%, till then you will need to mandate it.
Yeah, and that's an interesting debate to get into in terms of whether these mandates are required to bring in gender inclusivity or not.
Abhishek, I'd like to add to that as well. Yeah. And I firmly believe that mandates are required.
Yeah.
And till recently, I was part of a global organization wherein these mandates were made compulsory at every level. And they helped, because the people who are manning those positions, we don't know the kind of mindsets that they may be coming with. So these mandates definitely help. That is one. Another, small thing that I'd like to just bring up here, because I think it's relevant to what Nandini said and what we are discussing here. I'll step out a little, into the global fora and talk about a recent New York Times article wherein they had profiled 10 global architects of artificial intelligence. And within that, and I'm sure you all have read about it, there was not a single woman leader who was actually credited with being an AI leader, an AI architect. So a significant publication like a New York Times thinks it fit to not name even a single woman, has no fear of blowback, or has, I would say in this case, thoughtlessness perhaps. It didn't even perhaps occur to them that they are an international publication and they should probably make it an equitable list. So I think these things are happening everywhere across the world, in Asian countries as well as abroad, at a very natural, as part of a very natural process. Yeah. So I think those mandates, coming back to the mandates, definitely, if they are mandated, there will be some, people will follow that. And over a period of time, we can hope that it will become
Seema, you want to add something?
So no, I just wanted to add to that, just to give you an example. I'll again give you an example of how we are doing it in our company. So currently we have about 23% of women in our organization, and being a life sciences company and being a research-driven company, we have very high number of women scientists. But when it came to manufacturing and production, till about a couple of years ago, there was this, mindset, and there was this mental barrier that production floor is not meant for women. So we went around changing that, and we introduced a program called She Aspires, you know, the women biotechnologists, how they could come on the shop floor. We hired them, and now we have set a target for ourselves to be gender neutral by 2030. And in order to do that, each of the leaders has to have minimum 20% of diversity target. So it's one of the KPIs which gets monitored every quarter. It gets reported to the board. So I think when you have those kind of targets set, it allows a systematic progression, so that like other business goals, you get to them. I mean, something like you know, net zero. Every organization is wanting to be net zero. So you can have, if you have a target for that, why not for diversity? And as I said, gender diversity is the starting point, and then you need to move further.
Yeah, I want to just,
A very simple thing
Yeah.
like a panel discussion.
Yeah.
Many a times you'll find all men there.
Yeah.
Now it's not very hard to,
Yeah.
there's talent, but
Yeah.
it's easy way out to just do that. You know, so it's
Yeah.
simple things
Yeah.
where it needs to be mandated.
Karan, just a thought left for you. So, no, but I want to bring you in on the. I know in the early 2010, 2011, there's this famous HBR article about glass ceiling and how that kind of impacts. I just want to bring your thoughts in through your career. Has that hindered growth? Is there a glass ceiling still existing that hampers growth for women and gender inclusivity in an organization? And are there any examples that you've seen within your organization or outside, or you yourself, where you've had the opportunity to break it?
No, I think glass ceiling is there in many places, but it's, to my mind, it's a question of mindset of the leadership. If the leaders are broad-minded and leaders are inclusive and they want to get more women, and I've actually seen the chairman of PwC, some of them do that, where they gave the opportunity irrelevant of what your gender was, you know, and that made sure that in the leadership there were so many women when we found the person at the top doing that. You know, so it has to just start from there. It's as simple as that.
You want to add? Anyone you want to add to it, Seema or Praveen?
Yeah, I agree with what Nandini has said, and I would like to add further that in the current scenario, the way I look at it, I think the glass ceiling is not because you're a woman. The glass ceiling is because of the profession that we are in today. I mean, for example, I stepped into the leadership role many decades ago, and I was a part of the executive leadership and all. But do I expect myself to be on the board, company's board? I don't think so. Do I see myself, you know, becoming a president or the CEO of the company? I don't think so. Because the way our profession is viewed, even if you have a business understanding, you may have business acumen, whatever, but as long as you are in a role of corporate marketing and communications, I don't see myself going there. So it's not necessarily the gender, but it is also the role that you have played.
I want to just, you know, I want to pick this up. It's an interesting point. So where do aspirations and the role and responsibility of an organization come in to meet those aspirations? Can they not create a learning ecosystem for you to aspire to be potentially in the line to become a CEO, even if you don't come from that background?
I think it's a dream to be dreamt, but I don't see myself coming true, not at least in our industry, which is a science-driven industry. You have seen it in tech. We have so many women CEOs. We have, you know, startup founders, etc. So if you look at the women participation in the economic value is gone very high. So you do have women. But as I said, there's a larger issue which is related to a function,
Yeah, I think
not necessarily
yeah.
the gender.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is a function, and whether it can be on the board, thanks to instances like Raymond's and what all are happening, that you'll find that there'll be more of realization on reputation, somebody looking at that as a lens on the board.
Yeah. So you want
Also, I think I want to add here that typically people understand, and I think, you know, people in this room would realize what I'm saying, is that we think public relations and communications is all about being great at English, and that's ridiculous. You know, you know, if you can't make sense of business, and if you can't interpret your products, you know, you're useless in this profession. So we understand business from a very different perspective, and I think that's required in the board. And the sooner they realize it, the better it would be. I think what it has to do with, you know, conscious and unconscious mindsets that we have, and this goes back to the family. You know, you attribute, I mean, in India we attribute subjects to women, yeah, come on, you know, this is ridiculous. I remember, recruiting at Melcol, and one woman stormed out of the test that we had given them, saying, this is anti-women, this is the, and I said, are you crazy? What are you talking about? I have to understand this. So we had given them an annual report and asked them to make a financial announcement. And she says, but this is by the fact that you are asking us to do a financial analysis, you are favoring men. And I'm like, are you crazy? I mean, I don't want poetess sitting here. I want somebody who understands business. And if you don't, you are not in this line. So those are the mindsets that we need to change.
Vidisha, you want to add?
Just, to add to whatever the panelists said, I'd just like to say that most of the organizations, and though that awareness is growing today, they plan for everything. They plan for, financial risks. They plan for compliance risks. They plan for everything. But increasingly, as the Raymonds and the other cases come up, they have started now to plan for, reputation as well, reputation management, which was earlier not the case really. And I think, therefore, there is a bright prospects that, the fraternity has a good chance at being board members of listed organizations.
Nandini, you want to give any examples of how women in leadership roles has evolved over the years? Is that happening more, not happening more, and any examples of how that's played out?
Okay, so I'll give you an example of PwC where one of the women partners told me that when they joined the firm and they were article trainees, and we're talking about like 35 years back, they wouldn't send the women to do audits in remote locations because of that mindset, ki, will she be safe and whatever. So what happens? Your career growth is stalled because you're not getting an opportunity to actually go down and work, and so then you're left on the fringe. And so these women, article trainees were there, they got together and they said, no, we will go and we will go as a group and we can do it. And they pushed their way forward. And so that was a change. And that same lady went on to become the CEO of PwC because they pushed forward. So I think it's also in our own mindset, like Seema was saying, one is the leadership, but I think in our own mindset, we have to push and see that things actually happen.
Seema, you want to add any particular examples for your own career in terms of the
Yeah.
change that you brought in, or anything that was that really changed it for you?
Yeah, so what I said earlier on, I was being very, very candid because I'm very practical and authentic. I don't want to live in a fool's paradise. So that's my way of telling myself that, okay, you should aspire for what is really possible, let's be practical about it. But in terms of my own personal journey, well, I have had a fairly, good journey in terms of how I've really, come this far. And I was fortunate enough to have got, good mentors on the way. And that mentorship really helped me in terms of, reaching where I am today. And I think it's important that while you have the capabilities and the acumen, you should also have the right attitude.
Yeah.
So, if you have the right attitude, I believe skills can always be developed.
Yeah.
But attitude is something that you're born with. It's a part of your DNA.
Yeah.
So if you have that attitude, then you can go places. And that is very important whenever I'm interviewing people and I'm hiring. I make sure that I get people with the right attitude because, then you can always impart, you can upskill them and you can train them, do whatever, but attitude is important.
Nandini, you
Can I add to that attitude bit?
Yeah, of course.
Many a times you'll find men like happy having women, or maybe even men, who are like yes women. You say something and I will say yes. They don't want to have strong women around. Maybe it is their upbringing, I don't know what, but they don't want that, So how do we navigate that? I think it is again the leadership or more secure men, blessed secure men, where they can take on strong women around them who are ready to challenge as long as they appreciate the intent, and they can go with it.
Vidisha, you want to give an example of your own personal journey?
Several. I think we'll spend the, the rest
So
of
now
the evening
one example that really calls out in terms of
talking about it. So, I agree that it's really the mindset thing. If the leader above is whoever you're reporting to or the leadership group that you're a part of, uh, if they are dismissive of, the opinion that their women colleagues have to offer, it's very hard to, break that kind of a culture. And I remember I was part of a sports network, and it was a completely alpha male driven kind of an atmosphere where, nothing would sit with them, and everything, even before evaluation, would appear to be on the softer side. So there would be an outright rejection without even hearing, about it. So these are, certain cohorts, certain culture mixes, which are very difficult to break through. And I think we just have to toil through these. And I agree that attitude matters, the openness matters. Perhaps what can really help is mentorship programs for the leadership to help open up their mind spaces, to help open up, and mind you, this happens internationally as well as in India. It's not just restricted to, our country. So I think just the mentorship process, exposing them more and helping them deal with it better, I think is the only answer to having strong women around and listening to opinions.
I wanted to bring you in for a specific question regarding the PR industry itself, right? One is we've always spoken about the fact that, everybody in the panel is also speaking about there are more women in our industry. But I want to ask, is the industry itself doing itself to groom for leadership? One is having just more women in the workforce. But are we doing enough? Because in an earlier panel, there was also conversation about how more and more women, even in our industry, are dropping out when it comes to leadership. So I know corporates do a lot of things about specific programs about women in leadership, but do you see this in the PR industry itself?
I don't think I have witnessed that as a policy on any organization. Having said that, I think the challenges and why I remember at Melco we started a program where I went out and actually reached out to my ex employees who'd been out of the workforce for 5 to 7 years. The break that they had taken after they got married and had kids, and they were not being able to step back in. And I think those are the opportunities that we need to create. We do need to realize that women may be forced to take a break because of the simple role, the home and work balance. Now, how do we enable them to come back where they left off? I probably must be the only MD who took maternity leave while I was the MD, and I joined back as MD. But that was my own organization. How many organizations could think of going through? I mean, I used to spend 2 hours only. And because it was my organization, nobody could say anything to me. But I don't think that that is possible anywhere else. And would you ever step back into that role? So there has to be a systematic way of making sure that that experience is not lost. She does not start back, from the bottom. So.
I want to bring in, there was an earlier conversation where I thought was very interesting for us to pick up on, was on mentoring and sponsorship. So what is an ideal sponsorship model? And I mean it from a gender diversity perspective. Any good examples, Nandini, Seema, you've seen in your organization or outside where sponsorship seems to be working?
Example of sponsorship.
Or any, what's the ideal model of sponsorship? How do you see that playing? I think for an audience to understand, what is sponsorship? What's the difference between mentoring and sponsorship would also be very interesting.
So I think both, whether it's mentorship or sponsorship, somewhere there is a trust equation which develops, and maybe the person has seen your potential and you've actually delivered some outcomes, and the person feels that yes, you can go a long way. I mean, I have sponsored a lot of people. Some of them may have been very difficult also, with a lot of edges. So I think my role was to help round the edges, show them where they can go. They were very doubtful of their own, what they can achieve. I think the confidence levels were a little low. So how to prop them and push them along. And I've also gone to the extent of saying that, you don't worry, you take it on, I'm there behind. So you're not going to fall. So I think, but then that happens when you feel, one, the person is open to what you're going to say, because every time it may not be nice also, you're not just pampering the person, but the intent is not doubted. I think that's what works.
I know she stood up, so I want to still slip in one question for everyone, and I'm not going to call it as an advice for the future, because I think there's a career ahead for each of you ahead. So just what do you think should next 3-4 years be like? What is an ideal situation that you see in the next 3 to 5 years when it comes to gender diversity or the topic?
So I'll give 2-3 examples on that. One, I
Sorry,
would
we can just go, finish off with.
Yeah. So I would refer to that as maternity equity. And what I mean by that is, if women have taken, say, 6 months, and it's part of life, and we are going to go through that, then when it comes to the performance time, are they going to be compared with the men who were there for a whole year, and would the bonuses or increments in proportion happen to the 1 year? It's very important for an organization to appreciate the maternity equity, compare the 6 months to 6 months, and in PwC we've seen so many instances where even after 6 months, when the girl came back, they were promoted because they had potential. I think that is one important point. And second point I'd mentioned about the meritocracy, who is putting the parameters or the attributes? It is unfortunately, again, in all probability, the men. And so they are again looking at it from the men's eye, the men eye. So that is why I felt that can be so debatable when they say that no, we are going to look at people based on merit. I think these are some of the changes which I feel need to be
Seema,
happening.
Yeah, so I can see Karan telling us time is up, so I'll be very quick. The way I look at it, I think for women to really succeed in their life and seeking leadership roles, a sense of ownership is very, very important. So, and besides sense of ownership, I think what is really important today is that women should learn to self-project. We all have heard about self-love. But I'm saying we have to go beyond self-love and we have to project ourselves. It's not enough to just do good work and let the good work speak for yourself. Please speak up. You have a voice and you extend that voice, use that voice to talk about your own achievements as well. We all are very good at building the brand, right? But when it comes to talking about ourselves, we shy away. You must have noticed I couldn't talk much about myself today. I'm still talking about the company because that's the way we are all trained. So we have to learn to self-project. And I think our men colleagues are better at it, and that's something we got to learn from.
Vidisha?
Yeah, very quickly, Karan.
She's moving closer to the mic.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to quicken it up.
No, I'll just...
I must give you the
just-
time to give your conclusive remarks. Please
Very
continue.
quickly, 2 little things. One is that I think in the ecosystem with organizations, some of them have started doing this. We need to start normalizing things like coming back to work after a break. And those things shouldn't really astonish anybody. It should be a natural part of, work lives. One. Secondly, I think, lift as you climb, as they say. So as we continue to grow as leaders, whether it's men or women, let's be in a gender fluid state. Let's lift talent, and more women the merrier. So that's all. I think that's what I would like to leave everybody with.
Ma'am.
I'll go back to your basic question as to what do I want to see the change in the next 5 years. I want to see more communication people in the board,
More communication people?
at the board level of
okay.
companies. Because we are talking ESG, okay? The paradigm has changed for companies. And how are they going to project the ESG? The reputation is going to be, at risk in a manner that never was possible. So you do need people who would be able to manage those risks, and I would like to see, many of our colleagues here move that.
So Nandini is holding the mic, so I'll slip in one comment.
I was just about to say that next year is the year for that because a lot of board positions are going to get created.
No, thank you so much.